Hello everyone, welcome to Voice Essentials. It's so good to have you join us for our live show today. For those of you who don't know me, I can see some new names in there. Dr. Dan's my name. I'm a contemporary singing voice specialist. It is my pleasure and privilege to lead this merry crew of people of like mind right across the globe, people who want to develop their voice and improve their sound, and that's what we do here at Voice Essentials, because this is an online space where everybody sings. It is my great belief that it is the birthright of every human being to sing. You have a story to be told, and your voice deserves to be heard. So it is so good to have you. If you're watching this as a replay, as a sort of not live, but as a replay, you too are welcome. It is so good to have you. As you can see, we've got people in the live chat already. In fact, I am going to be joining them in a moment, because today's show, I've got two wonderful guests who I've known for a number of years. In fact, I think we'll reveal at the beginning of the show, beginning of the interview, how many years we've known each other. But Dr. Gillyanne Kays and Jeremy Fisher from Vocal Process are joining us in the show today. But because they are in the UK, I think, well, in fact, I think they tell us where they're from exactly in the UK. The time frames just did not work. I think they would have had to have joined us. I think right now it's something like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the morning. It simply was not going to work live. So we have done a pre-record interview for you. And we cover so much ground in this show, in this interview. So I know you're going to get so much out of it. I don't want to waste any more time. I'm going to jump into the live chat and join you. So if you've got questions as we go along, or if you've got just random questions that you're searching for answers for, I will do my best to answer those as we go along. Of course, we do live Q&A shows here as a part of the channel. We do these live shows every Monday, 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. In fact, I've actually seen our friend Nancy Bowes from the US, who has actually been an interviewee here on the show before. Nancy, it's so good to have you join us. We do these live shows every week. Next week, and every couple of weeks, we try to have an internationally respected pedagogue like Nancy and like Dr. Gillyanne Kays and Jeremy that we're about to have. But next week, we'll probably just do a Q&A show, I think, and answer your questions. As always, the wonderful, the amazing Linda Dalton is who moderates our discussions as we hear every week. She's going to be taking those questions that I don't get to in the live chat today and make a list for them, and we'll answer some of those next week. So make sure you tune in. If you don't know how to be notified, all you got to do is subscribe to the channel and hit the white bell icon, and that'll give you those live notifications of when we go live here on YouTube. But without any further ado, I think we should get into the show. This is going to be a cracker. I know, look, these guys are so respected worldwide. I just know you're going to love Dr. Gillyanne Kays and Jeremy Fisher from Vocal Process. Here we go.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Hi, Gillyanne and Jeremy. It's good to be with you today. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, good day and good morning from us over here.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderful solstice morning in the UK.
So it is solstice here for us as well. So we're having our shortest day. Of course, you're having your longest day. Whereabouts in the UK are you?
We're right on the border between England and Wales, and the border runs through the garden. So if we wade across the river, we're in England.
Okay, and do you find yourself wading across the river often, or?
It's too cold.
Last year it was warm enough.
Was it?
In fact, if you look at my personal Facebook profile, you will me in the river.
Okay, very good. I kind of know where that is in a sense that my wife and I watch Escape to the Country quite a bit, which is a UK show, which is always a wonderful way to see England. And yeah, so it's so good to have you on the show. We've been trying to pull this off for nearly 12 months, and of course one of the challenges is the time difference. In your part of the world, it's around about, what are we up to, nearly 10 o'clock in the morning?
10 o'clock, yeah.
And of course I've just finished a full teaching day, so I'm now at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and so for those of you who watch the show regularly, you'll know that I mostly have my American friends and colleagues and some Canadians on the show, because it's so much easier with the time difference to make that happen. But finally we've figured out how we can have my good friends Jeremy and Gillyanne on the show, and I'm really pleased, because we've known each other for quite some time, haven't we?
It's been a few years, Dan.
Yeah, it would have been, we first met in Adelaide, I think, which was the first leg of the Master Teacher Tour.
Yeah.
And that's a News Arts in
2011.
Yeah. That was our first trip to Oz, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and then I think we saw, I was the ANAT's vice president at that stage, I think, and so I flew on to Sydney with you, and we did Sydney as well, and yeah, so we've known each other for a little while. We continue to meet up at different conferences all over the world, and which has been fabulous. But of course, I've actually, quietly known you for a long time, because I've been using this little piece of gem, the build your own tilting larynx, for years. How long's it been around?
19 years.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Been together slightly less time than we've been working together.
Okay.
So it's been with us as long as we've been married, actually.
Right.
It's our 19th wedding anniversary coming up in August.
Yeah.
And actually we get it goes all over the world, this larynx, and people send us bejeweled larynxes, bejeweled larynges. And, they send us flocks of larynxes, and people use them. Oh, excuse me. People use them in their teaching. They're used by SLPs. It's been a really wonderful thing, actually, that we've been able to do.
It's one of those things that I think the rest of us in the voice teaching community quietly wish we had have come up with, because it is just everywhere. And look, I've used it so widely amongst, I get students to color them in and build them, and it's so kudos to you. I'm like many of your colleagues, very jealous of such a successful, such a simple, it's almost the paperclip of voice, isn't it? It's so simple, but everyone uses it. And for those of you who are watching the show, you need to log on and download. It's free to download, and make yourself your own, build your own larynx. It's fantastic. Of course,
that thing that you were seeing on the web page is a video that I made.
Awesome.
Of myself making it. And I speed the film up a little. It's about 3 times faster, but it's all done in one take. Because I thought, I'm not going to cheat on this. And what was really bizarre doing it was that I'm having to do it upside down and backwards because the camera's above the desk. And I'd never made a larynx upside down and backwards, which is, there's one point where I'm turning the larynx around and it looks like I'm just demonstrating, and I'm actually going, which way round does this go?
Is it?
It's a real sign of Jeremy as a performance artist, I think, because we did this back in our old London place.
Yep.
So I'm standing there with the camera and he's saying, keep it still, keep it still, keep it still. And he's doing this and doing it upside down. Yeah. And also I think it's, in a way, I'm very touched that you're talking about it's such a simple thing. Because what we think about the voice, that, even if you understand a lot of the physiology and so forth, which we do, and I know you do too, Dan, that actually the important thing as a teacher is to make it simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that people can use it. And that's something that we're actually quite passionate about.
Yes. Yeah. and as am I. I think it's. I think we in teaching land can make things far too complex with our language and our semantic, and I think the skill of a great teacher is to make the complex simple and understandable. And
Totally.
And I know, like yourselves, I work very hard to constantly. I think that's the art of teaching, isn't it? It's a constant, refinement of the way you say something.
Yeah.
Let me just. Sorry, Jeremy. What did you?
Well, I think there's an important thing here, which is, as a teacher, you have to know a lot, you have to understand a lot, and you have to understand quite a lot on quite a deep level. But the one thing you don't need to do is to pass everything that you know on to your student, because that's A, that's not your job, and B, the student doesn't need to know that. The student needs to know what's going to make the student be able to do whatever the student wants to do.
Yes.
Anything more than that is A, extraneous, and B, a waste of your time.
I think it's a journey as well that you make as a singing teacher. I mean, I've been teaching people to sing for 40 years now. And as you mature in your own teaching practice and you get your 10,000 hours, what you find out is it's the simple things and simplifying things that make things work for the student. So I think I teach in a much more intuitive way now than I did 20 years ago, which has been an interesting journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, halfway through that teaching journey, you've created Vocal Process, the business that many pedagogues across the world now know and really think very highly of. I mean, both of you have just built such a strong reputation internationally, and kudos to you for that. And for people, I want to encourage people who are watching the show now, make sure you check out the website. There's some fantastic stuff. Can I encourage you, if you're a teacher of singing, then Jeremy and Gillyanne do so much singing teacher retreats and what have you. You can check all that information out on the website, and you can do that at your own leisure after the show, because we've still got heaps to go here. We're going to have a lot of fun as we get into the rest of the show, because I've got a whole heap of list of questions here that we want to sort of work our way through. But I do.
Dan, can I just give, as you kindly mentioned about teachers, thank you.
Certainly.
Can I give a little shout out for our webinars? Because they're basically they're online training sessions, and I'm thinking that you've got quite an international audience. People can't always make it over to here, but you can. We have 18 training webinars which are very relevant to teachers. So this is professional development in your pajamas. In what's not to like.
Indeed. What is not to like? I love it. Learning to teach in your pajamas. Not that you should ever teach in your pajamas. I have had students arrive in their pajamas, and we've had a quiet word to sort of suggest that maybe next lesson that they don't do so.
Yeah.
That's a different story. I want to talk about both of yourselves, and because this is a first for me. I've never had two people on the show in a single interview. Tell me a bit more about yourselves and how it is that you come to be this dynamic duo of voice teaching.
It's the power of two, isn't it? I mean, there is a little story there.
Yeah, Gillyanne threw me out of a course.
Yeah, I was delivering a workshop in London, and it was a place where sometimes people, street people would come in and wander in. So I was mid-workshop, standing up there delivering, and I see this guy, this kind of big, burly guy I've not met before coming in, and I was heading down to get him out of the room. Yeah. And of course, it turned out that several other people in the room knew him. And so that was actually how we met, wasn't it? Yeah.
But the first time we actually worked together, Gillyanne asked me to play for a course that she was doing at the Actors Centre in London. And at the end of the course, people were saying, how long have you been working together? Because the rapport is extraordinary. And we said, this is our first time.
So I took him out to dinner.
Which was a good move.
Well, it evidently was. I don't think we can argue with that point.
There's something, I think for us, you know, we often say to people the power of two. Singing teachers, it is a lonely profession, isn't it, Dan? And I know that you'll recognize this as a freelancer. And it's very important for singing teachers to collaborate together, in my opinion.
Yes.
One of the things that I think we have that makes our work powerful is that I'm the singing teacher. I deal with the vocal development. I deal with voice building. I deal with troubleshooting. I love to troubleshoot. That's something I'm really working on these days with people, post voice rehab and post operation work. I give my singers exercises. Jeremy is much more a performance coach or a vocal coach, and it's slightly different, isn't it? Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, very much. I mean, the interesting thing is we have quite a big overlap in our knowledge base, but we come from different backgrounds. So Gillyanne was a professional singer. I was and still am a professional musician. And my background is as a musician, so I'm a trained instrumentalist. And I became interested in singing mainly because I loved working with singers when I was at music college, but I got so frustrated with them because I was an oboist. Originally, I used to play the oboe, and I could always take my oboe apart. There's a lot of ex-oboists in the world. I keep meeting them. So because I could take my oboe apart, I couldn't understand why singers didn't understand their instrument and why they were doing such odd things when they were singing. And I used to sort of give them instructions as a vocal coach out of frustration, because it was so obvious to me what they needed to do. And I go, oh, for heaven's sake, can you just do this? And the singer would go, oh, that really works. Great, thank you. And I went, there's a career in insulting singers. I quite like that. So
that is not our ethos.
No, it's actually been really interesting because I'm a musical director and a multi-instrumentalist. And because I come from the performance and putting it on its feet and the whole stage thing, I have a different view of what works and how to make things happen than Gillyanne does. And Gillyanne is the singing teacher, but she also has some performance training skills as well, having worked with me, and I have some singing teaching skills having worked with her. I still, even now, don't think of myself as a singing teacher because I think there is a difference between a singing teacher and a vocal or performance coach.
I mean, Jeremy, typically you won't do exercises with your students, will you? Or with your clients?
I will do exercises that are absolutely specific to something in the song. So I will do, if there's something going wrong in the song, I will absolutely identify what's happening, give them an exercise that will make that work, and then move on. What I don't do is voice building.
Whereas I might be working with things like, making sure airflow is working, looking at range management. I might be looking at the color of the voice. I might be looking at articulation. So I might well give exercises that relate to that. I mean, we might talk later about what we think of as being the difference between the warm-up, and many singers, spend a lot of time warming up, which in our opinion they don't need. The difference between the warm-up and the vocal function, the vocal skill exercise. I do work on songs, but I would tend to go into what's the technical area that we need to target here, rather than being someone who teaches a song from scratch. I mean, I don't do a lot of teaching songs from scratch now anyway, because those clients aren't the clients that come to me.
Yes, and people watching the show, people who are regulars here at Voice Essentials would know me as being more towards Gillyanne's point. I am more a singing teacher than by any means than a voice coach. So
I think also that there's an industry bias as well, because if you think of an operatic singer, they are most likely to have both. So they will have a regular singing teacher that they will go to for technique lessons, and they'll have a coach or a repetiteur to coach them through the roles that they have to sing. And I've done that role as well.
I think it's actually quite important, thinking of perhaps your own audience, Dan. It's quite important for them to know the difference
Yes.
between a singing teacher and a vocal coach. There are things that Jeremy does that one or two things that I can't do that he does. I do not play the keyboard as well as him. I can play. There are other things that he does far better than I can. And I think singers need to know the difference when they're looking for input. I think, Jem, it would be good if you said a bit more about what it is that you do in terms of...
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that I do is
Come on, sell yourself.
so hard. Coaching. I'm coaching the singer in front of me. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to what they're singing, how they're singing it, why they're singing it, what the context is, because the way that you perform a song in a musical is not the way that you would perform it on a stage in a cabaret or in a big stand and sing show. So context becomes really important. And then it's about finding what that singer's, sort of tuning into the singer's voice and energy, which is really important. That you get the authentic thing about that singer's particular version of the song. And I think, having worked as an audition pianist for so long, where one of the jobs that I had to do was to play for auditions for roles in musicals in the West End. And you would have 40 people come and sing the same song in a row. One of the things that you discover very quickly is that that song has an envelope, and people can move around in that envelope. They can morph the song, they can change it, they can twist it, and the song will still work. So there isn't one definitive version of the song. No. And that's where it gets real fun, when you're working with a singer and you're going, well, how do we put you and your voice and your energy and your personality and your history into that song performance? That's one of my skills.
I think it's the one thing, that you can say more about this. And I regard this as my secret weapon when we're doing workshops and masterclasses. Jeremy is a really fabulous musician, and he's able to listen to a piece of music that he's not come across before and very quickly identify signature style features within that envelope that he's just talked about. And from that, he will then build the performance. So if we're doing a masterclass together, I'll hone in on technique because that's what I do. Jeremy will come in from somewhere in left field, and sometimes he will fix something much quicker than I can. And I stand back and go, well, that's what I wanted to do in the first place. But he came in from, if you like, more from the intuitive level. And I think that that's a side of perhaps singing teaching that some of us technique teachers don't get into, and we need to, because we need to develop that in the singer as well. Yes. So that's kind of the power of two, really, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I too feel very, I don't want to oversell this, but strongly about the differences between the different roles that that you're expressing there, to the point where I have done, for those who are watching the show, there is a video on my channel about this very subject and talking about the differences, and it is really important that singers, developing singers, student singers find themselves with the right person for the right outcome that they're seeking.
Yes.
And because you can find yourself, if you're technically deficient, then it may well be that whilst you do want to spend your lessons singing songs, you may well be better serviced to start with a technically based singing teacher, and then find yourself with someone who's then going to spend the lion's share their lesson time on songs. And occasionally you will find that in one person, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's even better if you're in the UK and you can go to Vocal Process and get it all under the one roof. Very good. I wonder, the thumbnail for today, on today's video, which has already been designed in the magic world of YouTube, says, "What is practicing?"
Yeah.
I wonder if we can launch off this idea of, and you, Gillyanne, you said earlier, you were talking about the difference between warm-ups and you know, essentially what I would refer to as a technical workout or a technical development of the voice. I think what you're about to say I'm going to love, because I think I say this quite often to my students, to not treat their technical workout as a warm-up and to not treat their warm-up as a technical workout, and vice versa. I wonder if you could unpack that a little bit for us, and then maybe the two of you could then take us down the road of what is practicing.
Yeah, right.
Great. Thank you for that, because actually it's something we're very passionate about as well. That I think singers can get very caught up in, you know, I've got to go through this exercise all the way through my range, up and down, you know, and then I've done 10 minutes on one exercise, then I have to do this and I have to do this. I mean, even quite experienced singers, when I first meet them, if they come as clients, say, oh, well, you know, I'm getting a lot of vocal tiredness, but I'm doing my warm-up for half an hour. And then I'm thinking, well, that might be one of the issues. Actually, you don't need to warm up for half an hour. The point of the warm-up is it's almost like a check-in. And I grant you that with a less experienced singer, they may need to spend more time on the check-in, and they may need more guidance on the check-in. But by and large, this is about getting your breath and the vibrations working, getting your body ready. A warm-up can be done in the kitchen. A warm-up can be done in the car. A warm-up can be done in the shower. I will be honest, most of my warm-ups take place in the shower. You know, I'm in there just doing a little bit of and maybe a bit of maybe then I'll sing a scale. That might be enough. Maybe I'll sing the line of a song. And maybe I'll sing that line of a song, you know, higher and lower in my range. I'm then ready to go off and say, right, I'm going to be singing this song today. What skills do I need to practice in order to be ready to do that song? Now, I'm obviously an experienced singer, so I will know immediately which exercises I need to do. The job of the singing teacher, as they're taking a student or a client through incremental learning, is to say, you need to practice these exercises. You need to do them X times a week because you are developing this particular skill.
Before you go into the skill thing, I just want to say, if I'm doing warm-ups with my clients in a lesson, I'm listening for about 3 or 4 different things. The first one is, are the vocal folds vibrating together cleanly? And you can find that out just by making noises and glides, or voice fricatives, or whatever. You don't actually have to do massive amounts of scale patterns. The second thing is the breath moving? And again, voice fricatives are really useful for that. Occasionally a straw, just to rebalance stuff. But again, I'm going with noises rather than scale patterns. The third thing is range. Is the range working? And you can do that on. I tend not personally to use an NG glide now because I can't get as high, so it doesn't work for me. I tend to do little vowels like just small noises on a slide up and down. And maybe, depending on the client, I might do a couple of consonant things just to make sure that the articulators are working. And to be honest, that's it for a warm-up. If you want to add the brain in, then fine, we can do some brain stuff. But really, that's it. That's the warm-up. If everything is working, that's all you need. And then you go on to either skill building or song practice.
I often refer to that phase as taking a sounding of the voice, and I often do it in the shower also, with that old concept of taking a sounding over a boat to see what the depth is. What is the condition of my voice? Where is my voice today? And so I often refer to that with my students as taking a sounding, and Sorry.
Yeah, we have the 10-second voice check.
And because your voice isn't the same every day, you know, you could be tired, a female could be premenstrual, you could be recovering from an infection and so forth.
You could be recovering from a heavy night.
Yeah, we do need that check-in. Actually, Jeremy, I'm glad you mentioned range a little bit more than I did. I would say that for singers, it's useful to do a bit of range work, not from your very top down in the warm-up, but sort of doing a little bit of descending, and then maybe going in the other direction. So kind of top down glides and then bottom up glides. And that kind of helps to ease that whole business of how we hand over between, you know, one part of our range, one mechanism, as we say, to another mechanism. That's definitely something that I would do. If somebody knows that they have a tense jaw, and maybe tongue root tension, they could be looking at, you know, doing a little bit of massage here and maybe doing a bit of ya, 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 maybe singing a bit of ya, 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 anything like that, or sing a line from a song. And we use a lot the voiced H, because that releases the tongue root. So that, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Who didn't do your warm-up this morning?
Yeah, that one, I did not include that in today's warm-up. So those are the sorts of things. And, you know, Jeremy says 30 seconds, and I think that's a tiny exaggeration. I would say about 8 minutes ought to be enough for that check-in. And actually, there's something that I learned from one of my first singing teachers that I must admit I never paid attention to. She said, because, you know, I was one of those singers, I used to go and put myself in the room and practice. And she said, don't do that. She said, you know, do it in the kitchen. Just, you know, sing a little bit, just for a few minutes, and then wait and do it again. I never allowed myself to do that when I was a performer, because I felt that it was kind of cheating in some way. Well, doesn't it make total sense though, Dan? Because this is what we do if we go to the gym. You know, we're not there pumping away at the same exercise, you know, for 100 repeats.
No.
That is not doing the biz. So if you are having a bad day and a tired day with your voice, do 3 minutes and then go off and do something else for 10 minutes and just do it again. And what you'll find then is gradually things will come into play. And that's what the warm-up is for.
So once the voice is warm, we've taken our sounding. How do you encourage your students to practice? Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know, we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? Do you want to start?
For me, there's a difference between vocal skills and song learning and song production, if you like, song performance. And I do want to separate the two out. Often I will sort of interchange the two, because sometimes when somebody is singing a song, you will hear something where they don't have the skill to do that particular thing. So I'll take that out of context and do a skill learning session with them.
So if they're having a difficulty with a particular note or a word on a note, and it's often the word
it's
that's
often
the problem, isn't
the consonants or the vowel shape, yes. So I want to go with a skill learning exercise first. Skill learning is about taking your vocal mechanism, if you like, and helping it to learn to do a new pattern. So a new movement, or to refine a movement that you already do. And the best way to do that is to go from an ordinary thing, put that skill or movement in, and then go back to the ordinary thing. So this is a world of comparison. We have to have things to compare. So it is no good just hammering away at whatever that skill is. You have to actually have the comparison of stopping doing the skill, then doing the skill, and then stopping again, so that you know what's moving, you know what's happening, you know what sound is going to come out.
Give us an example of the ordinary thing.
If I had a problem with, let's do consonants, because consonants often come up in song performance. If I had a problem with a V, I want to know, I'm singing a word that has like love, which has a V in it, but I don't know what that V is. I don't know where it is. I don't know what it feels like or what it sounds like. The best thing that you can do is to put a vowel before and after. It's the same vowel. So you've got something to move from, then you put the skill in, then you move away from it. So if I was to do, morning, I didn't do the warm up either. Morning. Okay. If I do it that slowly, then I am moving. I'm just noticing what moves. I'm noticing what happens to the airflow. I'm noticing what happens to the volume. I'm noticing what I do already. And then I'm working out, or with my teacher, I'm working out what I need to change to make it work better. With that particular V, what often happens is that people will bite too hard. So you get, and you feel all the air pressure building up underneath.
So by stopping and taking the consonant out of context, you're raising awareness.
Absolutely.
And then you put that into the line of the song. Maybe you'll sing that on a single note. That's something we do a lot. So that if you were doing, if it were love, I would give that love every second I had. So maybe you would sing, if it were love, I would give that love every second I had. Love, 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 to experience how you're making that consonant fit in that word.
Yeah.
That is practice.
That's a skill practice.
And Jeremy, I also want you to say that when, everything we're doing in singing is music. We are singing music.
Can we remember this, please?
Us singers, and I speak for myself, it's all about the voice.
Oh, la voce.
So many of us are obsessed with my voice. Did my voice sound all right? Even Jeremy and I are saying here, oh, morning, I didn't do that. Oh, my voice didn't sound great.
Yeah.
It's all about the music. We are singing music. So when we're practicing, what we are learning are music patterns, and we are learning to play those music patterns with our voice, and we're also expressing the meaning of the words. And we do that as well in a rhythmic context. And of course, that's why we have to hold notes longer than other notes and so forth. That's really the nuts and bolts of what we should be doing in our practicing. And I think often we don't know how to do that as singers. I think instrumentalists, by and large, are better than that. I think it might be. I mean, quite a lot of our clients aren't music readers. And Dan, I'm sure you have this with your audience base as well. Many CCM singers and many actors don't read music. And so the way of learning the musical patterns is often done by ear, which is not a bad thing at all, but it's often done by ear, working from the beginning through to the end, and not understanding how some of those patterns fit together. And we have actually got something that we're going to talk about later on in this that I think is relevant to that.
We might be able to go to it very soon, because believe it or not, we've already been talking for 35 minutes.
This is what happens when you get two of us.
We literally have around about 10 minutes left.
Okay. Ooh,
Did you want to go to that?
Hang on. Let me speed through this.
Yes.
One of the things that as a pianist, I'm very skilled at learning things really fast, and I brought some of that skill over into the singing coaching. So if I find that there is a phrase that I can't play or sing, I'll find exactly where the point is that it's going wrong, and then I'll go back 3 or 4 notes, because it's often the build-up instead of the area that you think is wrong, where something isn't working.
The penultimate phrase,
yeah. So you take that and you just move backwards 3 notes, sing that. You move backwards another 3 notes and sing that. You move backwards another 3 notes and sing that. So you're always putting your correction into a context.
Yeah.
Oh, and we have a tip related to that. For if you're having a difficulty with a range difficulty with a point in a song, put it down 3 semitones and gradually work your way up.
Yeah.
Back up.
It works like magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's that. And the other thing is that always in a lesson, I will get the person to sing the song through first. It's the first thing I do. Once we've done a warm up, if that's necessary, the first thing we do is sing the song through, because I want to find out where things work, where things don't, precisely where things are going wrong, assuming that they are, and then we can drop in and do the skill stuff. So it's all about context. So that's that. Can we talk about pitch?
Well, we want to make sure we get to pitch centers. So let's make this a quick one.
Okay. Pitch matching and pitch mapping.
Yeah, singing in tune, we prefer pitch matching. And also pitch mapping is something that we do in our own voice. And we think that's something that's often missed out in the way that singers practice and are taught to practice.
The question for me is, where do you feel pitch? And so many people, when I ask the question, go, oh, well, high pitch is here and low pitch is there. That is actually a completely meaningless concept, because we don't raise something up to half a meter and then drop something another meter to go to a lower note. If you look at a piano keyboard, lower is to the left and higher is to the right. If you look at music, higher is up and lower is down. If you look at a trombone player, lower in general is further away from you and higher is closer to you. So for all of these things, and even on a woodwind instrument, normally you move your fingers so you're covering up lower notes for further away holes for low notes, and then you open them up for high notes. So the whole business of pitch and how you think about it is quite weird. And I think it's a learned thing. So I will do an exercise on pitch matching. I'll do a couple. One is tell me where pitch is, and then I will deliberately change it for you. So if you say that pitch is up here and down here, I will go, okay, sing exactly the same phrase and do lower notes further away from you and higher notes closer to you. And that feels different for singers. And then I'll actually reverse it and go lower notes closer to you, higher notes further away from you. And that will feel different as well.
Could you quickly sing a short phrase and just show 3 different ways that you would physically map it?
Okay. If I just do a scale, a 5-note scale, let's do pentatonic. And notice that I did that with my hands, and you see that a lot with pop riffs. Okay.
That's a reversed trombone.
Yeah. They all feel different when I do it.
I wonder what's happening with left brain, right brain activity there. That would be fascinating, because that's really interrupting people's. There would be some cognition dissonance happening when you ask people to do that, wouldn't there?
Totally.
It's a fascinating thing. I mean, I have done it with even experienced classical singers, and I've told them to, think horizontally. And they have gone, oh my God, that has made everything so much easier.
There are a couple that I find are very effective. And again, I never impose that's the one you need, because I can leave it completely to the singer to go, wow, that one feels different. That seems to work. But there are a couple that I do find very effective. One is when people are singing a high note and I say, where is it? And they go, it's here. And I'm going, if that high note is here, it is actually out of your range of vision. And if something is out of your range of vision, you are not going to be able to do it well. So I will make them do their entire range. So this is the very highest note they can hit, and it's still in their vision. And the lowest note they can hit is just chest level, so that their entire range suddenly becomes within their eyesight.
Yeah.
And that changes the way they do things.
Yeah, love it. Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, I'm often reminding students that music is written horizontally. It's not written up and down. The moment you get into that, that's when we're going to hit problems.
Absolutely. And there's one more thing which we found is quite useful, because in a way it's the most accurate. When you think about changing pitch in the vocal folds, you're speeding them up or slowing them down.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily moving anywhere. You're just making them vibrate faster or slower. So it speeds up and slows down. So speeding up is a higher pitch and slowing down is a lower pitch.
Now, what you can't see is Jeremy is doing that.
I'm turning the dial.
He's doing a speed dial with his hand.
Yeah. So if I did, that's really interesting, because that for me feels like every note is in exactly the same place, even though all I'm doing is just turning my hand. But there's something about because singing is so internal, when you take it out of your body and you give it something external to do or to look at, it gives you a completely different experience of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something, isn't there, about but maintaining that attachment to the body map, in the sense that it's still the person's instrument doing the work.
Yeah.
So we're not completely externalizing it; it's still connected. Yeah, fascinating.
I think it just helps that kind of proprioception of pitch. Yes. Because you're doing something physical.
Yes, and you just said a word that I'm very passionate about, with proprioception and kinesthesia. There is some very powerful stuff in amongst that. That is a tributary that our 4 minutes we do not have time to go down that one. So is there anything that you did want to, because you've given me some sheet music and everything like that, is there anything that you wanted me to bring up for you to talk to?
Let's see if we can go there very quickly.
Sheet music.
This is something, Dan, that came out of my doctoral research, and we started to put it into practical use, which was finding out that every song has a pitch center, a kind of a place where the singer spends most of their time, a note where the singer spends most of their time. And there's always one in every song. And in fact, in a lot of popular music songs, there are two. And what we discovered is that by getting singers to find where that pitch center was in their voice, they could very quickly map the melody of a song in their voice. Can you call it up
not
fast, I can't
not
see it
only
on.
that, it actually becomes much easier to sing, and this pitch center is often not the keynote, which is interesting. If you look at the song in front of you, it starts in D major, so you would assume that the pitch center is a D, but we start messing with people's minds by giving them different pitch centers to use. So I want to give you a couple of examples of this. If I do a hand above the water, an angel reaching for the sky. So I'm roughly on that D. I'm sort of holding a note in my head, and I'm working my way around it. If I hold the lowest note in my head, which is the note I start on, a hand above the water, an angel reaching for the sky. The sound I make is darker.
Yes.
Everything sits lower. It feels heavier. Now, we can use that if you want to start the verse with something heavy and dark and sad, then we can use that low A pitch center to sort of hang everything else off. Where it gets difficult is when you get into the next bit, where it starts to go an octave or more higher. And then you're weightlifting.
I want to show how I would use the idea of pitch centers to teach the song. Okay?
Yeah.
Give me the F sharp. So singer brings me the song, and I have a quick scan of it, and I see there are a lot of Fs and Gs.
Yeah.
So I might get into their voice to do I have now mapped every note in the song except for the bottom G. And I have found that in my voice, and it so happens in my female voice, that's a comfortable modal for me. So that allows me to hear how easily the singer's going to sing that song in that key or not. And then I might start doing the mapping process that Jeremy is doing. And I have found this is the quickest way to teach a song for the guide, the teacher, or the performance coach to just find out which notes appear the most often, establish those in the singer's voice, teach a few intervals, and then They've got that song nailed.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is that Gillyanne started on the F sharp, which is in fact the main pitch center, as far as I'm concerned, musically in this song.
Like
everything hangs off that F sharp. And because she's done their sliding, but starting on the F sharp, she's actually mapped all the notes on that F sharp.
And it so happens for me, as an old soprano, but singing in my modal mechanism, which of course I wasn't trained to do originally, that to hang my voice on that F sharp is absolutely perfect, and I can then reach all of the notes in the song very easily.
Yeah.
If I hang it on the A, it's going to be way too heavyweight for me to take my voice up to the A above.
Totally.
And just to point out for people, because there'd be a lot of people looking at this and they're just seeing dots on a page, you can see the arrow on the second stave in the second bar pointing down at the F sharp there, just for people who may not have known where that was.
Yes, and this is my transcription of the original performer in the show. This is Kerry Ellis' version, and this is not the way it's written in the music. This is the way she sings it. So I've got extra slides, extra grace notes, extra rhythm changes.
And she sometimes sings the note a little blue.
Flat.
And she does a bit of on some notes.
I wonder too, as you were talking there about the note that we choose to hang, or that is there, build on. So you can either find yourself hanging it off a note or building it off a bottom note. I wonder also what, and my mind immediately went to, I wonder what preconceptions of your own voice classification that you bring to a piece, how that then affects. I can see someone who may have put a big stamp on their forehead and called themselves a bass would bring that sort of, and they would find themselves building off the bottom note as opposed to finding that pitch center like you're suggesting. Yeah, fascinating.
And a typical lightweight female, if we were to think of themselves as a high-voiced CCM singer, would look at that song and think, well, it sits too low.
It's too low.
Yeah.
And again, that because they'd be thinking down to the note, and the moment you've sort of doing that, you've got that sort of north-south approach as opposed to the east-west.
You're digging.
You're digging, aren't you?
For those low notes.
Absolutely.
And the instruction that I give to people is whatever note we choose, and we might try several. Let's say it's the F sharp. Sing the F sharp, get comfortable behind the F sharp. F sharp is your home note. It's like you're not, and that it discourages people from either digging down or hoiking up.
And if the singer says to me, oh, you want me to place my voice on that note?
Yeah,
I'm cool with that. If that's their sensation, I will go with it.
Yeah.
But I prefer your word, Dan, which is I'm going to hang it from that note. I think that's, that's more what we're doing.
Yeah.
We have had such great results from this, even when we've done it in group workshops. People initially have been a bit, music readers have been a bit skeptical and said, oh, it's not going to make any difference.
And it does.
No,
my God,
no,
it makes
intuitively I can see it would absolutely, it would work. There's no question in my mind, just from you showing me what you're doing there. That absolutely makes perfect sense to me. And I encourage people at home to try that. Find yourself some sheet music if you're able to, and see if you can play around. Even with that piece that we just had up on the screen, that I've taken down because we've just hit the 50-minute mark, and we are going to have to wrap it up, which is a great shame, because I've really enjoyed our conversation, as I knew we would, and so is there anything that you have a burning desire to very quickly put a line under before we finish up for tonight, this afternoon?
One of the things that we were going to talk about was the difference. Every singer has a cataloger and an artist. And I don't think we've got time to break it down, but I did write an article on it.
It's a very nice article. It was very popular, actually.
Awesome. And where can we find that article?
It's on the Vocal Process website, vocalprocess.co.uk blog.
Blog over here. So if we go to blog.
Yeah, you might have to search for it because I have quite a lot of articles in there.
Yes, there are.
But there is a search feature.
There's a search feature on it.
There's a search feature up here.
Yeah.
Down.
Right at the top right.
Top right.
In the menu.
Oh, here we go. Right up the top, everyone.
Yeah.
There's a whole load of, I have to say, pretty awesome articles there. I mean, Jeremy writes most of our articles, and they are very, very popular.
Occasionally I write a rant.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with a good old rant.
Nothing wrong with a good old rant. And of course, people can follow you on Twitter. They can follow you on Facebook, and people can join up to the blog. I think that you can sign up to the e-zine, can't you? Is that what you call it? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And look out for us when we come back to Oz next year.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think the 13% of my audience that are in Australia will look forward to seeing you when you come.
Well, look out for us whatever country you're in, because we'll be in a country near you.
Yeah, well, that's true. I did forget to mention, Gillyanne, that of course I've had this book for many moons. Is this this is the second edition? What edition are you up to? Is it still only 2 editions?
I haven't had the opportunity to do a 3rd edition, unfortunately. I think what we would recommend for your audience, Dan, as I understand it, would be This Is a Voice book.
The This Is a Voice book is the most recent big one with, it says 99 exercises on the front. It's actually something like 106, but they liked the number 99.
It covers more areas that I think are relevant to CCM singing than singing in the actor, which is obviously positioned very much in musical theatre.
This book here.
Yes.
And,
and it's in paperback now.
Awesome.
Amazon #1 bestseller.
Okay. Fabulous. So people can go and check that out via the links in the description section below. I'm feeling terrible that we've got to wrap this up, but I make a commitment to everyone every week that we're going to keep it within the hour. And of course, I fit this in every every Monday, not on Tuesdays, Daniel, every Monday at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time in literally a lesson session. So any moment now, not right now because it's Friday night, but any moment now in the live show, I will get a knock on my door. So I do need to finish up. It has been the greatest of pleasures to have you both join me on the show, and there is a reason why you have the reputation that you have, both of you. Not only are you fabulous pedagogues, but you're just warm, lovely, engaging human beings, and I really appreciated having you on the show today. So thank you for your time, and I perhaps we will be able to do this again in the future, because there is so much that we didn't cover today. We had so much else lined up, but there's just not enough time to cover all in one show.
That would be a pleasure. This one's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
To do more would be also a pleasure.
Let's do it again.
Awesome. Okay. So everyone, stay tuned, because I'm going to be coming right back in just a second to sign off for the show. So stick around. I'll be back in a second. And I will be back in a second. Here I am. Well, look, I hope you enjoyed that show. Thank you very much to Dr. Gillyanne Kays and Jeremy. Aren't they fantastic? I knew you'd be in for a treat, well, because I'd sort of already seen the show. You know what I mean. But I personally have really enjoyed watching the show along with those of you who have been watching the show live. And so good to be reminded of some of that pitch mapping and those sorts of things. Can I suggest a piece of homework for all of you watching the show? Jump across to the Vocal Process website, download the Build Your Own Larynx PDF. It's free to download, and build your own larynx. You've got to get all kindergarten with it, and you've got to get a pair of scissors and some colouring in pencils. You'll find it rather therapeutic from a mental point of view, but you'll also find it very educational. There's something about taking the time to construct and understand the way your larynx all goes together. It's something I've done with many of my students over the years, and I encourage you to do the same. There's your homework for the next week. Of course, we'll be back in 1 week's time. We're going to do a Q&A. session. And then also, ladies, you're going to be interested in this. In 2 weeks' time, we have Joanne Bozeman, who is the wife of Kenneth Bozeman. We had him on the show last year, but Joanne herself is a highly experienced singing teacher and is currently co-authoring a book on matters pertaining to women. So hormones, menstrual cycle, menopause, issues that really impact the female voice. She is coming onto the show in 2 weeks' time, and we are going to be talking about that in depth. Gentlemen, I encourage you to join us as well, but it will be a show where a lot of our lady subscribers are going to get a lot. There is so much in this subject that I'm looking forward to having Joanne join us on the show. So there you go. Another fantastic show, if I might say so myself, on behalf of Dr. Gillyanne Kays and Jeremy Fisher. We have the most outstanding people come onto the show. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any of these interviews. There's so much in them. There was so much in this show. A lot of people in the chat have been saying they're going to go back and re-watch the show. I encourage you to do that because there is just so much that you can sink your mental energies into. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in a week's time when we'll do all of this again. We'll do a Q&A. I'll catch you soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.